Welcome to the Pursuing Freedom Outdoors podcast, a place where backcountry warriors can share their stories of grit, service, healing, and wilderness adventures. I'm your host, Tom Walton, Marine Corps veteran, full-time cop, and aspiring hunting and fishing guide. Join me and others as we journey from the hood to the woods in pursuit of freedom in the outdoors. All right. Welcome to the Pursuing Freedom Outdoors podcast. I'm your host, Tom Walton, and today I am joined by Jesse Wandling on episode 19. So we're just going to knock off my microphone there. So episode 19, and so we're getting there. We're going to hit the milestone of our first 20 episodes, and we'll have 21 dropped here by the end of the year, which is coming up in about 21 short days. Moving right along. So anyways, Jesse grew up in Northeast Iowa, hunting and fishing with his dad. After growing up, he joined the Army, where he served 20 years as a flight engineer, including spending 7 years in the Special Operations community with the 106th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. Jesse deployed to Afghanistan and Iraq, spending a total of 54 months deployed in combat zones. Jesse now lives in Alaska, where he owns and operates Alaska Lakes and Rivers Guided Expeditions, where he takes clients on world-class fishing expeditions, and I believe that includes river fishing, and this time of year when it's super cold up there in Alaska, he's doing ice fishing trips, which is really awesome. So we're going to dive into all of that here. Jesse, welcome to the show. Thanks for spending some time joining me today, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's get started and jump right into it and just kind of let you tell listeners more about your background. So you grew up in Northeast Iowa and you were hunting and fishing with your dad when you were a kid. What was the experience of that? What were you guys hunting and fishing for, and what was that like?
Yeah, so at a pretty young age, I'd say I'm pretty sure it was around 9 or so when my dad first started taking me out, and we'd go in the squirrel woods and, pretty much spend the day up and down the hills, because I grew up in Northeast Iowa. It's like a rolling hill country. It's not flat like the rest of Iowa. And we'd just be out there going for squirrels. And then eventually I progressed, I should say, and to be able to go whitetail hunting. And we did quite a bit of that. My dad was never like big into fishing. So, we did little bits of that together, mostly going for trout, like rainbow trout and brown trout. And honestly, we were not very good at it, but I at least got the exposure and started, learning some bits and pieces of that, you know what I mean? And really my fishing side was more developed later on once I was in the service. But we were definitely very avid in the squirrel woods and for the whitetail season. Yeah.
Awesome.
Definitely where was the best time to spend out there, just chopping along in the woods.
Absolutely, man. No, that's awesome. So when did you end up joining the Army?
I actually left for boot. Well, I joined the Army in the delayed entry program. I don't sure if every service did it, but the Army did that delayed entry program. So I signed up when I was 17. I was in my senior year in high school. I had to have my parents sign off on it. But I had my boot camp date was in the beginning of June. So I left, it was something like 5 days after our graduation. I shipped out the boot camp.
Outstanding, man. And so you ended up being a flight engineer.
I started out actually in the infantry. So when I joined under the contract basically I was 11 X-ray. It was like unassigned Ranger contract. So what I ended up doing was going to Fort Benning, Georgia, going through what we called OSUT. I can't remember it's like one station individualized training, something like that it stands for. So you basically do basic, and then the drill sergeants come in at one point and they're like, hey, welcome to AIT. You're like, okay. And then boom, you start a little more advanced infantry training. But it was to me, it was like a really long basic training because we were there for 16 weeks for that. And then off to airborne school, we went up to um, 75th Ranger Regiment then to go through their RIP program. And at the time, I guess the Ranger Regiment had a pretty high strength amount of people for 11 Bravos, like I was, which is, your standard infantryman, but with airborne qualification. And needless to say, none of us 11 Bravos made it through the Ranger indoctrination program successfully. But what they had done is they took a group of us at the top and they said, hey, there's this there's a long range surveillance company out of Fort Bragg that has changed their MTO and they're bringing in privates that are not Ranger or Special Forces qualified, which it used to be the only way to go there and assess was you had to be, if I remember correctly, you were a sergeant or E5 and above, either Ranger or Special Forces qualified, and then you could come there and assess. But they took a top group of us there from that RIP assessment and sent us over to Fort Bragg, and we went into long range surveillance unit, which then I ended up having to do their assessment piece there. And I spent, I guess I'll make sure it doesn't take too long on all this military background, but I spent a few years with those guys. And then I decided I didn't know, I knew I wanted to do 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was I guess I was smart enough at a young age that I was like, if I do the 20 years, I mean, I like what I'm doing in the service. I like serving my country. I loved serving my country and feeling like, a real part of that. But I was like, I don't see my body being able to do 20 years in the infantry. You know what I mean? Just from everything from jumping out of planes to, our rucks that we carried on those LURS teams, because we operated in just a 6-man team. And if you went out there on patrol for, a week or two, just think about the amount of stuff you're carrying with only 6 guys. You know what I mean? That radio communication. What we did is we surveilled targets or potential targets. You know what I mean? And then we would have to relay information back to a talk, and then that stuff would be run through with intel and all that to see, basically what they were going to do with that target, or if it was even a target. But you carried all your food, water. If there was areas where we could procure water, we got to spend a lot of time drinking, iodine tablet water, you know what I mean? Because kids don't, while you're out there. But it was that radio equipment and all the batteries, you know what I mean, that made it heavy, plus then your ammo. So I remember.
Yeah, stuff's heavy.
Oh, yeah. I remember I was only 135 pounds when I got there. I was skinny, you know what I mean? And my ruck was so heavy that I couldn't just grab it and throw it up on my shoulder. I had to sit down on the ground, strap into it, then take my M4 with one hand, stick it down on the ground, and then have another guy who was up standing grab me and then pull me up. And then once you were up, you didn't sit down until you were taking that ruck off. So even on patrol while we were moving out, we're like, all right, we're going to take a break. I'm leaned up against a tree, you know what I mean, on foot, because it was too much to get, back up out of that sucker. It was heavy. So I was like, I just don't know if my body would hold out that long. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
I decided, I was like, man, I think I'm going to try this aviation gig out. My dad had been a flight engineer on Chinooks, so I had known about him. And I was like, well, I can still be, because I didn't want to be only in the support kind of person. You know what I mean? So I was like, it'd be great to do something where I feel like I'm still doing missions, you know what I mean? But not necessarily, going to pound my body into submission. So I was like, I'll go aviation. And then once I reclassed there, while I was there at the AIT there, the reclass, I had heard about the 160th. I had never heard of these guys. And I heard about them while I was there reclass. And so I put in a packet to see if I could get picked up to come and try out for their assessment. And I actually got the letter back saying, yep, we accept you, but you're on assignment to a unit that's currently They were actually poised in Kuwait for this was a kickoff then for Iraq in '03. So they're like currently deployed. They're going to need you. So, we're not going to take you at this time. So then I went over to an organization called Big Windy, the Chinook company that was in Germany. I got into Germany real quick, got a quick in processing. Boom, I was downrange for my first tour in Iraq. I ended up actually doing 3 combat tours, like long ones, basically like it was 8 month one, and then I did a 12-month one, and then I did a 15-month one for the Iraq surge, all with this organization because I got what they call IPCOT, an in place consecutive overseas tour. I chose to stay with them because there was a brotherhood there that was, and almost all of us had been on almost like all 3 of those deployments, you know what I mean? So we were really
Right.
tight. But then after that third one, I was like, now I'm getting older and too high up in rank. If I don't go now and ask to go to the get again and assess, it won't happen. So I was kind of a late bloomer for going to the Task Force 160th. I went there as a staff sergeant. I already had 1,500 flight hours before I got there. It's kind of there where they normally don't want to take in guys like that because either they're too ingrained into the kind of regular Army way of doing business / there's always a chance there that, as you climb the rank structure, the pyramid for available spots gets narrower. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
Yep.
basically people end up getting promoted out of there. You know what I mean? So, but I had a really great first sergeant from a company there that I got in contact with before I got assigned. And basically he was all on board for bringing me up there. So he put his name on me basically and
Nice,
got
man. It's
me
awesome.
pulled in. You know what I mean? And then, I spent 7 years with those guys doing, stuff that was to me where I felt we were really making an impact. You know what I mean? It was like we were going after the bad guys, you know what I mean? And we were still given the ROE that allowed us, even in the later years there, to conduct these missions. You know what I mean?
Right.
And just a great group of people that had that they had the desire to be there. They had gone through the assessments, they'd gone through all the training. They spent a lot of money and a lot of time training us, and it all depended, like there's everybody from the air crews down to our support, you know what I mean, and
Yep.
admin and whatnot, you know what I mean. They all go through assessment,
Right.
which was one of the cool things about that organization. You may be coming in there just to be, I shouldn't say just to be, you may be coming in there and your job is strictly an office job. You still got to go through assessment, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
see if you have the mental fortitude to operate in that
Which is
organization.
cool because it gives you guys, everybody in the organization, that unique bond. Like everybody earned their spot the same way. So that's pretty awesome, man. That definitely is a foundation to build some cohesiveness.
And that's what I think one of the smartest things 160th did is doing that, because I feel that everybody there then has buy-in. And I've come across when you have buy-in in these organizations, you know what I mean? Like you said, we all went through the same crap, you know what I mean? You got through it. I wouldn't say,
Yeah.
it could be challenging more for
Hmm.
others, you know what I mean? And than it in some. But you got buy-in, man. You know what I
Everybody
mean? Like,
wants to be there.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That's
Um,
cool, man. And that's who you deployed to
and then
Afghanistan?
so I did quite a few what I called short tours then, because I had spent my time in regular army. So to me, regular army was a normal tour. We used to do 12 months tours, and then we did the surge for 15 months. And then I think they started doing like 9-month tour caps. But anyway, there we had stuff we were doing in Afghanistan that I was calling like I want to say routine, but our regular mission we had that never basically stopped in Afghanistan. So we would be put on rotations there, and you do 30 days or 60 days. It just depend. And then we had our other stuff that happened around the world that we did too. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But Afghanistan was that one where we did come in to continuously support the ground force that we, special operations forces that we support for our infill and exfil slash CASVAC. I almost feel like I'm slipping on something here, but basically we were their helicopter assets there, and it was a helicopter war in Afghanistan. You know what I mean? It really
Yep.
was much like Vietnam style, where that was the main way to infill and exfil ground force
Yeah.
of targets were via helicopter.
Yeah. A
You know what
lot
I
of
mean?
that
Especially
stuff's
that
like,
mountainous terrain.
yeah. Yeah. A lot of that stuff's terrain driven, right? So,
Yep.
man, that's incredible. Well, one, thank you for your service, especially in light of spending so much time in combat deployments. One thing I ask a lot of people, and you kind of already alluded to this, but you sounds like you were joining roughly in a time where you knew that war was a likely possibility in your military career, especially wanting to do 20 years. I mean, we spent more than 20 years at war. So there's no secret to you that what you're signing up to do could be dangerous and cost you your life, man. What was it that in your heart that made you want to serve?
I mean, the big stuff was, I felt I had a duty to serve my country. And I think a lot of that probably stemmed because of my family's background. So the Wanling family, we got service and could be, I mean, somebody should probably document it, but I know they've done some genealogy and stuff in the family. And there's ties to almost every conflict that the U.S. has been involved in since the Civil War from our Wanling bloodline. So it was like, you know, a must and part of the bloodline, you know what I mean, to
Yep.
continue serving. And that was, I was really brought up in a family of, you know, prideful Americans that felt the calling to serve, you know what I mean? And have a lot of family members serve, you know what I mean, and are
Yeah.
still serving. So yeah, I mean, I think that was probably really my big draw, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And then, I mean, I wasn't even about the college money. So, like, the funny part was, like, when I went in there in the MEPS to sign up, you know what I mean? I did my ASVAB. I come out and there's the recruiter at MEPS, not the recruiter I had gone through that brought me down there and everything, but the recruiter I was going through. He's like, "All right, you scored X amount." He's like, "What do you want to do?" I was like, "Well, I want to be an airborne ranger." He's like, "What?" He's like, "Hey man, like, you scored really high. You know what I mean? Like, you can do whatever you want." He's like, "How about military intelligence and blah 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 blah?" And I was like, "No, man." I'm like, "I want to be in the fight." You know what I mean? I want to be, you know, where I feel that would be
Hmm.
where I feel I can make the impact. Of course, he looked at me like I was an idiot. You know what I mean? But he's like, "Well," he's like, "I can send you on that on a signed ranger contract." But he did say, since they were so high, they were full, which I can't believe to the day, because it seemed like those organizations always needed. But he's like, "Yeah, they're at like 110% over, or later, like 10% over strength. They're 110% on their MTO for 11 Bravos." He's like, "So there's no bonus."
Right.
You know what I mean? He's like, "If you go just regular Army infantry," he's like, "I can give you a $20,000 bonus." I was like, "No, man." I'm like, "I want to go to that organization." So I denied the bonus. He looked at me like I was probably mentally challenged, and somehow my ASVAB score was probably wrong. And yep, I signed me up for that.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. That's I could very much relate to that just cuz I know when I joined the Marine Corps it was infantry or bust. So that's just something about, like you said, man, you want to be in it. You're a young man, you're full of piss and vinegar, and you want to go out there and serve your country, and you want to do it in the way that maybe your family members did, maybe it's cuz you watched it in the movies. I don't know, but that's just how I was, man. It just seemed like that was the way to serve for me as well.
Well, yeah, they did pretty well in some of these movies, putting like you said, I mean, almost like romanticizing it, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So yeah, and like you said, when we were young, I wasn't thinking about, like, anything outside of just, I wanted to sling lead for my country, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
There's definitely you have a romanticized vision of what war is and means, and going to fight in war is, you know, um, that kind of gets shattered at some point. But
Oh yeah,
yeah, man.
when the
So
real stuff happens.
all of a sudden, yeah, all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's not what I was expecting. But yeah, man. Well, again, thank you for your service, and that's awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for 20 years for our country, man. So you get to the end of your career, and some point you end up in Alaska. So how did you end up in Alaska, and where did Alaska river and lakes guided expeditions come from, man? Where did it start?
So we ended up in Alaska, and so this will be a little story with back with being in the special ops community. When you're there, you're what we call being fenced in. So it meant basically is you're not on the rest. Well, you're on the books. That sounds stupid. You're not on like or HRC's books, like as far as human resources
Right.
goes, and being able to grab you and move you to an assignment like guys do,
Hmm.
like I don't know, every 3 years or something, you know what I mean? They basically come up on assignment and gotta go somewhere else. Well, when you're there, you're fenced in. That doesn't happen. So the only way you come up on assignment is basically you ask to leave, get told to leave, um, or like I said, to get opportunities where people promote themselves out and there's not a position available, or there was enough people that got promoted and the best got those positions. You know what I mean? That's just what it
Right.
was. Well, when I was there, I actually was promoted up to sergeant first class, which would have been that first chopping block point there to be, hey, there's not a position available or there's too many people that made it. And I was fortunate enough that I was offered position to take on, and stay within the organization. So I did. And then I did that position, and then I moved into another one as a platoon sergeant back at the company I was in. But while I was down there, I always periodically would look at the open assignments. They always sent out this list, and I can't remember what it's called, but there was like this list that had open assignments on it. And the wife and I had been talking over the years because we were getting at this point, getting close towards that retirement
Hmm.
side, and we were always like, hey, I would like to maybe finish up my career either out west, Alaska, something like that, you know what I mean, to kind of get our foot in the ground over there. Because we did have the goal. I wanted to guide or run my own outfit because I found that when I was out in the backcountry, that was like Zen for me. You know what I mean? That calmed all the stress and calmed all the, being spooled all the time, and that, what I mean? It was
Absolutely.
calming, so there happened to be an assignment that opened up that I could take based off of my rank and MOS up in Alaska, up here in Fairbanks at Fort Wainwright. So I had to work with basically contact HRC and be like, hey, if I get my fence removed, can I get this spot? And they're like, only do you get it reserved if you get the fence removed. So then I had to go through the chain of command there in the 160th, and asked to have the fence removed, which at the time there, when I did it at first, it ruffled feathers pretty good. I mean, and I understand because they spent all that money, all that time on us. You know what I mean? They've
Right.
been molding you and you're climbing up. You know what I mean? And I totally understood it because it was hard. It was gut wrenching for me to go in when I did go to the first individual that I had to start that conversation with, that I wanted to be able to take this assignment. And I was like, hey, man, I'm just trying to set myself up at retirement, basically have Uncle Sam move me up there. You know what I mean? I'll get my foot in the door. I'll be able to start kind of working into this after the Army life, you know what I mean, while I'm here. And then if we don't like it up here, Alaska can be harsh, and I knew that there might be parts that I might not like. Then, we would be able to be moved down when I retired, you know what I mean? Still on Uncle Sam. But yeah, so in the end, they got the fence lifted and I got on that assignment and I came up here and it was hard, man. Because that was leaving the special ops community, I just these badasses, man. These straight up,
Mhm.
you know,
That
professional.
you've done a lot with and been through a lot together.
Yeah, and I was like, well, you know what? I can do this. I'll go up there, and just, finalize my last few years um, and, work for after the army life. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But yeah, I got up here. It was rough, man. The regular army had gone through some pretty downward cycle phase there since I'd been out of it. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to dig into much of it, but I ended up doing like more admin stuff about putting people out of the army, you know what I
Man,
mean, than
yeah.
doing anything like focused towards mission stuff, you know what I mean? Well, then eventually I got through that. And then at one point they're like, hey, we're going to promote you to master sergeant. And I'm like, what? I'm really close to retiring. I'm like, I didn't do anything for the board. You know what I mean? Like it was all I didn't do was decline it, because if you declined it, they could technically separate you, and then I
Right.
might miss retirement. So, but my DA photo was so old that it was removed off of my record and everything, which that used to be a big no go if you didn't have a decent current DA photo at these senior enlisted board. I'm sorry, I think it cut out. But if you didn't have a DA photo at these senior enlisted boards, they just overlooked you. For whatever reason, well, I got a sequence number, and this is under the old system when you get a sequence number, and then as they went through the numbers, you get promoted. Well, if you're promotable, like that is, so I got to the board and they're like, you are promotable. So now I was like Sergeant First Class with a P, promotable status. Well, they can frock you, which means put another rank on you. So
Hmm.
they decided I'm a first sergeant, or they want to make me first sergeant for one of the flight companies there, which they did. So then I went up to that company, and basically we had some work to do to get some air crews ready because we were having to deploy. So that was going to be my last tour. Then was with them, a 9-month tour, and out of in Afghanistan. Uh, and I ended up still being even a flying crewing first sergeant for a little while there as I was trying to train up. I had really young crews, you know what I mean, that I was really wanting to make sure were good to go when we got there, because I wanted to get the company into combat, conduct our mission successfully, and bring everybody home in one damn piece. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, so then after I got back from that, I got out, I retired, and I was like, well, I still got to make more money because the retirement check's not enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So then I worked as a contractor for a few years on base. And then, yeah, I mean, really what it come down to is after the VA finalized with me in my retirement check, I was able to
Hmm.
financially support my family and start the dream, which was what I wanted to come up here to do, was to either start an outfit or at least guide and then maybe start an outfit. And through the encouragement from my wife, we pulled the trigger, man. We dumped our savings into it and we started that business. I started it after, and honestly, I'll give a shout out to Corey from Sweetwater from when I was down there going through their school, which I'm sure you'll explain on probably another podcast, but going through their Sweetwater fly fishing guide school, talking with Corey at one point, and he just said, he's like, hey, I think you got something going up there and you got the personality to be successful. He's like, you should just go full into it, do it. And I did. I friggin' got back, and I actually got my business license and all that stuff done down there, finalized it, and I got back to Alaska and I started pushing forward to going full swing into running our guide business.
All right, so we're back live. So for the listeners that are listening to this right now, and it'll not seem so crazy for you guys because I'll edit it and it'll be all spliced together. But for the listeners, when I was recording with Jesse for this episode, we had a break due to weather. We had a big windstorm here in Idaho and I lost internet and power. So we actually are picking up 2 days, 2 or 3 days later. I think it was Wednesday when we tried to record this episode, and now it is Saturday morning. So it's been a few days. So forgive us if it seems like what the heck are you guys is going on with your conversation? It didn't make sense or jive or line up quite right. That's what's going on. No big deal. But for our sake is in Jesse and I, we had left off where he was just kind of talking about the beginnings of guiding. He'd retired from the military and had gone to guide school and was coming back to Alaska to go full swing. So we're just going to try to roll back into that, and I'll edit it a little bit, but this is the way it is. It's real. I don't try to like make things super beautiful. It's just, this is life, man. And this is how it goes. So moving on with our show here. So Jesse, you had gone down to guide school, and I kind of wanted to know too, for guide school, did you go to guide school before or after I met you up in Alaska?
Oh, now I'm trying to remember. So I
That was
think,
2023.
oh yeah, no. So I went to guide school after we had met. Then,
Okay, yeah, just kind of like
which
curious.
I mean, this that for the Sweetwater guide school. I'd been to some other ones out of Colorado before. Dang it, I'm forgetting the name of them right now. COAGS, Colorado Outdoor Adventure Guide School, which I had attended those years.
Oh, gotcha. Well, that's kind of interesting to know. So, just out of curiosity, man, like your experiences, and not to like call out Colorado or Sweetwater, but like what was the differences, and which one, like if someone was going to ask you, man, which guide school should I go to prepare to do what you are doing, whether it's in Alaska, Idaho, Montana, wherever in the country, down in the Southeast, as their guiding industry is really picking up. What school would you suggest if you could only go to one?
Yeah, see, that'd be a hard one. I mean, I guess it would really depend on what you were like. So those guide schools, they were tailored. Like Sweetwater is tailored towards, fly fishing guide. You know what I mean? And then the coags one was he has multiple different courses, and like the ones I'd gone to was like basically it was like your beginner guide, and then it was like advanced guide, and that was tailored towards Western big game guide,
Okay.
basically.
So
But he
completely.
also does have a fly fishing one too, which I've been debating about going down to and going through, because you pick up stuff. Even though I already got my own business now and everything, you pick up different ideas and techniques and ways of doing things in all those courses. Everything from just how to handle yourself with clients to even business, running a business model. It's
Right.
So if I had to say one, I would probably have to shout out to the Sweetwater guys. That was very eye-opening for me, in a lot of stuff. I picked up quite a bit of practical knowledge that I needed for my business. I guess if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get it. Well, and you're a fishing business, right? So that makes to me that makes sense. Like, um, big game guiding and fishing guiding. There are absolutely, having guided some big game hunts, having guided some fishing trips, there are some similarities when it comes to managing client expectations. I think guiding fishing is way more fun, only because the pressure is a lot less. I feel like with big game with big game guiding, there's a lot more money on the line, and
Yeah.
to me that puts a lot of pressure uh, on the guide. Whereas guiding fish, it's pretty. I don't think on a guided trip that I've guided, which isn't a whole lot, but I did it for a summer, and we didn't have a day where we got skunked, even on tough days. And something that I learned doing that, learned through my own fishing experiences, and was really reiterated in guide school, was that sometimes the best trip is the one where you slug it out all day, and you finally, like, the client finally catches that one really nice fish all day, at the end of the trip, right? It's like, yeah, we all want to
Yeah.
catch fish the whole time, but man, sometimes that's a little bit special because you worked so hard for it, right? Especially with the client that's
Yeah.
putting in the effort, and you're putting the effort, and when it finally happens, it's like, oh, yeah, man. And yeah, and all you can do is put in the effort.
Yeah. No, for sure. And like with us, a lot of with my business, we do a lot is tailored towards the backcountry experience though too. So, I can guarantee them that experience, you know what I mean? I can't guarantee the fishing, you know what I mean? But,
Right.
I can guarantee that backcountry Alaska experience. So, I mean, that takes
Yeah.
some of the pressure off.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's, if someone's traveling to Alaska like I do, that's what we're seeking, right? If I'm coming up to Alaska, I'm coming for the experience of the country. The fishing and the hunting is part of that, but the catch or kill are, they're just icing on the already sweet cake that Alaska is. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard it said, and I've said it a lot of times, man. Like you can't, especially if you're someone from back east and you're coming out to Idaho or you're going up to Alaska, I would tell you if like make sure you check your expectations and don't. And if you can hold off until you're in a spot where you're coming up here, and if you come home with nothing but a great backcountry experience and not a trophy, um, that's when you're ready to come out here, right? Because if you're going to spend the time and money, no guide can really guarantee you an animal or a fish, but like you said, they can guarantee you the experience. So you need to be able to come up here and just be ready to soak in the backcountry, whether it's Idaho or Alaska. And if you could do that, then you're going to really come up here and you're going to get what the country has to offer you.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, man. I mean, that's what we, try to make sure that these guys understand what the experience, when you said like, expectations of the clients, you know what I mean? And I try to make sure I get them to understand that, you know what I mean, that there's no guarantees in this. And if, you're shooting for that trophy pike or trophy grayling, some of the fishing we're going to be doing is going to be hard. You know what I mean? Because we're going to be targeting the big guys. We're not just targeting catching. You know what I mean? I can go out and pretty much, for pike, especially, I mean, like you just want to catch pike, I'll make sure you can just catch pike. But if you're going for that 50-inch pike, we got to slug it out. You know what I mean? And it could be some, like they say with the muskies down in, northern Minnesota and stuff, the 10,000 cast, you know what I mean? Fish there,
Mm-hmm.
you need to be doing a lot of casting and a lot of work for it, you know what I mean? And then when we get on that big guy, you still got to, land them in the whole 9 yards. So it can be rough. But
Yeah,
when you get them,
absolutely.
it's awesome.
Heck yeah, man. I think that's spot on. Yeah. Same thing with hunting too. You could go out and like, yeah, we could go shoot a deer or we could go shoot an elk. But if you want to shoot, the big buck and the big bull, you're gonna have to hunt really hard. You might not come home with an animal, but that you got to be okay with that. Some guys like me, I'm a meat hunter, man. I typically am going to, not pass over a lot of animals. So, but that's just to each their own on expectations. If I'm coming up
Yeah,
to
and
go
that's
on
what
a,
we find out with the clients, you know what I mean, is to
yeah,
see what it is. I'll talk to the guys, and I've booked trips where they're like, the whole goal is to get into that. Oh, well, I mean, 50-inch pike is, you know, world class, but we fish areas that, will get into that 40 plus range if we slug it out, you know what I mean? So, and I'll
yeah,
know if that's what they're shooting for, or if they're just like, I want to catch a bunch of pike, we can do that too, you know what I mean? But well, if we're going to target those big guys, we're not going to catch as many fish, but we're going to go for the trophies.
love it. So you kind of talked about Corey encouraging you, just kind of back on the guide school thing real quick. The episode before this, so it's live right now. You're coming out this Friday. We'll be out with this episode. So back to back from the guide school, talking to Corey about it to talking to you, which is cool because you're a former student that's actually gone out and you're running a very successful guide operation. But how did Corey encourage you? Because he's a very encouraging fella. And how was your experience at the guide school? You don't have to go too far into the story of it, but you know, just kind of like what did it do for you to go to that guide school?
Well, I mean, outside of some of the practical knowledge that I gained there, and honestly, I wasn't big into fly fishing at all. I mean, I'd barely done much fly fishing before I went down to that school. When I planned, like let's put it this way, when I went down to the school, I was really thinking about starting this business. You know what I mean? I hadn't started it yet. You know what I mean? I was really ready to, I should say, go full into it. You know what I mean? Him and hawing about it. And I was like, well, I'll do um, fishing, maybe regular spin casts and or doing ice fishing, you know what I mean? And then I'll offer up fly fishing too, you know what I mean? But I'm not that big on it. And actually, a gentleman that I was working with up here at Sportsman's, you know what I mean, with my little part-time deal, said, "Hey, you better go to Sweetwater and get a little bit of more knowledge on fly fishing, you know what I mean, and have that tool in your tool bag, you know what I mean." So yeah, I go down to Sweetwater. Those guys are, world class instructors, you know what I mean, and guides. Obviously, you've been to the course, so I got my crash course in the fly fishing, you know what I mean, on top of being a fly fishing guide. Then you know what I mean, and got really into it. You know what I mean, into the fly fishing piece, and I'll get back with Corey here in a second. But after this course, I really hammered down into fly fishing. I mean, it was
I couldn't tell
everything.
by all the rods there lined up behind you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's not even all, man. I got a lot of them out in my, out with my boats and with the rafts and whatnot. But, I mean, I loved it. And I just got full swing into it, and to the point now where really it's what I try to push for most of my trips outside of ice fishing is, to fly fish. Cause I get clients that, never fly fished, you know what I mean? So they're not coming on trips here like because it's a fly fishing trip. They're like, I want to go after grayling. I'm like, well, we should do it on the fly rod. They're like, well, I've never fly fished. I'm like, I'll show you. I got taught by, I mean, I had fly fish, don't get me wrong, before I went to Sweetwater, but I sucked. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And then Sweetwater, those guys, all the instruction there, I got pretty decent at it. And then I, really got into it afterwards. But I'm like, I can teach now to the point I can instruct, clients I get to get them on fish right away. You know what I mean? And be able to basically have a decent cast and, in a short period of time. And that's all thanks to the Sweetwater guys and, their phenomenal instruction. It was great because they were basically trying to show us as students how to, effectively teach someone to fly fish, in a short period of time when you got them on a trip. And it was great for me because I'm like, well, I'm that guy there right now. You know what I mean? So I soaked it in, and yeah. So I guess to get back to with Corey then. So while I'm down there in the school, and I talked to him that, I was wanting to kick off this business, but I kind of, hemmed and hawed about going full into it. You know what I mean? Basically just keeping it as a side hustle more, and just then really expanded upon it. And Corey just at one point there, he was talking to me. He's like, I remember what he said, but, he gave me some props about my character and, what he saw of me. And he said that I think, and then what I was talking about my business model being, he said he think it would be a good thing up there and that it could be, I could be successful at this. And I just need to, go full into it. Pretty much what he said. You know what I mean? You just need to go do it. And that's what I did, man.
Yeah, dude, Corey's awesome, and I'm sure he'll listen to this episode. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, he's the thing I really like about Corey is one, he's extremely encouraging and he wants you to be successful, whether it's just to be a better angler. If you have no interest in being a guide, he doesn't care. He's like, I just want to make you a better angler so you enjoy the sport. You're invested in the conservation of fish in waterways and taking care of things. But he'll also, I mean, absolutely tell you, very tactfully, he's good at it, but he'll tell you where you need to improve too.
Yeah.
And yeah, the guys there did incredible. And as everybody kind of learned on the last episode, one of the best things, in my opinion, that they do, besides the instructing part, is just how streamlined that Sweetwater is with getting veterans to be able to attend on the GI Bill, with the Voc Rehab. They're dedicated to it, and Corey makes it so easy. I'm actually looking to, hopefully I'll be back there in October of 26 to do the advanced fly fishing guide school, which I think they actually do on the Yellowstone rather than the Bighorn, which will be a lot of fun too because it's a different fishery, a little bit different water. It's not a big tail water with the browns and stuff. It's, I think there's a lot more cutthroat fishing and stuff like that, which is great. That's what I fish here in Idaho, mostly is cutties and rainbows. But they do a really good job. So I'm just
Well,
glad
they
that,
do. Yeah, like you said, man, with the that advanced for because I did the basic and then the advanced back to back while I was down there, and yeah, going over to Yellowstone. Because they do Yellowstone, they do the Boulder. We went over to I'm trying to remember the name of it's like an, a private property fishing area that we went to, and I'm trying to remember what the name of it was. And they had like 5 miles stream, I think, that ran through on this private property. We got access to go fish, and man, that was fun, dude. You talk about small water fishing, you know what I mean? It's tough, but
yeah,
it was some big rainbows in there. It was fun.
that's cool.
And having to learn a little better techniques about casting right and presentation being right, you know what I mean, and delicate, not just slapping the water. Well, I was gonna say, man, with the VA piece, like what Sweetwater does, like some of these, I feel like some of these places, and I've heard of them, you know what I mean, and I'll say it, I've been to some that take that offer up that courses, you know what I mean, using the GI Bill, and some of these places it seems like they're really just in it for the money from the GI Bill, and they
Yep.
know it, you know what I mean. So basically, these veterans are going through a course, and it's basically just like, let's call it a vacation that they're paying for. You know what I mean? And they might get a little bit out of it, but then they're the organizations that are doing it, they're basically just bringing in that GI money. You know what I mean? Or that GI Bill money, and these guys are on a little vacation. Corey and those Sweetwater guys took that and are literally really trying to put these veterans through a good program and get them into work.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Either actually, guiding for their outfits or starting your own deal, whatever it may be. They're really dedicated to getting those veterans good education for that piece, and getting them out there, you know what I mean, and doing what that is supposed to be, like you said, that like Voc Rehab style deal, and actually really working at it, not just taking advantage of a program.
Yeah, yeah. And the cool thing is Corey is a constant resource for those guys when you leave the school. He's not shy about letting you stay in touch with them and answering questions. He'll help you with the job placement side of it, getting your resume put together, putting you in touch. If you want to go up to Alaska, he'll put you in touch with outfitters hiring for whatever you want to go do, whether it's, backcountry rainbow fishing, all the things that you do. I know King Salmon Camps, he's got connections to go do those.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever it is, he'll help you get where you need to be, right? And it's pretty cool. I mean, the thing that you'll notice too when you talk to him for any amount of time is he's doing this because he cares, right? He's doing this out of love for veterans, out of love for the students. Is not just veterans. I mean, we had a couple of non-veterans in our class. This is not a veterans school. So if you're listening and you're not a military veteran, this is for you too. We're just talking about it because they take the GI Bill, but um, a lot of assistance. But his biggest, what he gets really excited about is when somebody calls him, veteran or not, but a former student calls him and says, "Hey, I'm working and it's going great." Or one thing that I know that he really gets excited about is when somebody like an employer, an outfitter calls and said, "Man, you guys sent me this dude and he's just freaking killing it this season. First season, he's already just doing great work." That's That's the kind of stuff that he's out for, man. He's not in it for the money. He's in it because he wants to try to pay it forward, pay it back a little bit, especially to people that serve the country.
And then Corey's real, man. So that's the thing too. Like, he'll tell us, a person, if they're, unfit in something, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And that, or something we need to work at, or maybe straight up that, hey, maybe this just isn't for you at all. You
Yep.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's, and that's the cool part is I like some like people like Corey that are just, straightforward and, real, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so,
Yeah, so if you're going to
and yeah.
pick a guide school to go to and use your GI Bill benefits, or if you're not in the military and you're going to pay your hard earned cash to go to a guide school, whether it's hunting guiding, fishing guiding, rafting guiding, whatever type of outdoor guiding thing that you want to get into, just make sure you do your research on what kind of experience you're going to get so that you're
So
not
that's
wasting your money, you're not wasting your GI Bill because of all the things that Jesse just talked about. Yeah, man. So just kind of walk us through the rest of your journey of setting up your business, how you got to where you are now because, you told me before we started recording the first time that you're way busier than you thought you would be, which as a business owner is a really good problem to have, but it can be super intimidating, but, you come back from guide school, you're doing all the things. Yeah, so just walk us through that process, and then you're welcome to get into as well what you offer, what kind of trips you offer, and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I mean, it was slow at first, kicking it off. And ultimately, I mean, I took on my first client, which ended up being three brothers that I took out for two, well, basically back to back multi day backcountry trips. And so we went from a 3 day river float and we come back out, take a break. And then we went into another area where we had to hike in. Then we base camped I have a 35-foot camper that I use. I call it my rolling fishing lodge that will base camp at some areas, you know what I mean? And then, hike out or some of the places we do, we'll take the rafts in and whatnot, you know what I mean? But anyway, with these guys, we base camped out of that and hiked into some areas to go after Arctic char and grayling. And, it was a really great experience and was like, well, I think we can really, we did well. Those guys had a great time. I was like, all right, I think I'm decent at this, you know what I mean? And that was kind of like my first, you know, trial run, I'll call it, you know what I mean? And yeah, so I invested more money and time into it, and we started bringing in more and more clients. So at first, it became kind of like it was word of mouth, you know what I mean, for the most part. Slash, I had, you know, some rack cards done up and, um, business cards, you know what I mean, that I had spread around Fairbanks, you know what I mean, so people would catch that and you know what I mean, and have that, have my contact information there, and I ended up doing the Fairbanks outdoor show, um, you know, that we have in the springtime, and got their name out there some more, you know what I mean, drew in some clients. And that's when we really then booked up the next summer, or this past summer, excuse me, is when we really then uh pretty much got a pretty full calendar out of it. So everything from, people passing our name out there to you know, people that had attended the outdoor show, people stopping at Sportsman's or whatnot and grabbing up the rack cards and started spreading our name out. And now we're in trying to advertise more, like Explore Fairbanks website, and which you got to pay to get into. So I started putting money into advertising. I put money into advertising on Fish Alaska magazine. I don't know if you've ever seen Fish Alaska or Hunt Alaska magazine.
I haven't, but now I want to.
Yeah, we're actually now got in the December issue on their print issue, we've got a ad in there. and we've got ads in on their website. So yeah, it's pushing the name out more, you know what I mean? And yeah, I mean it's drawing us in or drawing us more and more clients. So more and more than I thought I was gonna do. I mean, it was like this last summer, it seemed like I was getting calls, you know, quite a bit and being like, hey, I'd like to go fishing tomorrow. And I'm like, oh man. I'm like, all right. Yeah, I got an opening and I'm actually having to make a calendar. I'm still old school, so I keep a, you know, friggin' folder and I actually now have to pop it out constantly when someone call me to see if I actually have an opening. So I was like, yeah, this has got to be a little more than I thought it would be. Before I could basically get a phone call and I knew off the top of my head, I'm like, yeah, I got an opening. Now I'm like, let me check the calendar. So yeah. What
That's
else was in
awesome.
the part?
Oh, dude, yeah, so that's I mean, first off, I'll just say like I am so excited for you, man. Just cuz I remember when I met you back in the late summer of 23, you were just like, "Yeah, I'm trying to start this business." And but you were excited about it. I met you at Sportsman's Warehouse, and just to kind of speak to your character for the listeners, one, we exchanged numbers, right? Once we realized we were both veterans, it was like, oh, that's awesome. You were really excited for what I was up there to do with veterans group, the caribou hunt and stuff like that. And I came in looking for some way to go fishing while I was waiting for everybody else to get to town. But one of the things that just I haven't forgot is I mean, without hesitation, you're just like, hey, man, when you get back from the North Slope, if you want to go pike fishing, let me know, man. I'd love to take you, take you fishing, you and some buddies, and uh I mean, you barely knew me. You met me for like I think we probably talked for a half hour, 45 minutes and in the store there, but I mean, that's just the kind of guy you are. And I think that's gonna get into one of my questions here in a little bit, and maybe I'll just ask it now. But that was awesome. Unfortunately, it didn't work out because for a long story, but we ended up getting broke down on the haul road, getting back to town super late. Uh, we had 5 caribou to cut up and butcher and get in the freezer so people could start flying home. Some guys had flights within 12 hours of when we got back to Fairbanks, so it was hustle time. That's just hunting and fishing Alaska, man. You never know how exactly things are going to go down. So I guess that leads me in, and we'll come back to the second half of my last question, but might as well ask it now because we're talking about it. But why do you like to guide? Why did you want to become a fishing guide?
Um, well, I guess let's say, I mean, to make this a long answer, I guess. Ultimately, I wanted to be a guide long time ago. I actually left or asked, and I can't remember if we talked about this in the last episode. But I asked to leave the special ops community to come up here to Alaska on
Yep.
an assignment. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
To get my foot in the door to be a guide. And it was really because I wanted to be able to work in an industry that I just fell in love with. You know what I mean? Like I've read a bunch of books about people starting outfits or, just their guide life, you know what I mean? And I mean, I guess we'll call it the romanticized piece about, just being out in the backcountry and, guiding people, being that subject matter expert, you know what I mean? And being that safety net for someone, that doesn't have that necessarily, that backcountry knowledge or expertise to be able to come out into this environment and safely, hunt or fish, you know what I mean, and survive while you're out, you know what I mean, and get back home, you know what I mean. And yeah, I mean, I really enjoy being able to take these people out into this experience, you know what I mean? And because so many of them that I get, and we'll say almost all of them I get have never done anything like an Alaska backcountry float trip or, just being in Alaska backcountry in general, you know what I mean? And they're, we'll walk or we'll get up on a gravel bar and I'll be like, oh, hey, let's point down, like there's a grizzly track. And there's like, you know what I mean? It's like blows their mind, you know what I mean? I'll put my, show them there, and, big old grizzly track, or wolf tracks, or we'll see bears, you know what I mean? And it's just, awestruck for them. It's cool. You know what I mean? And then obviously too on the fishing piece, you know what I mean? Like you'll get those people that have never caught a fish, or this is the biggest one they've ever got. Or like I got guys that, like a couple of guys that came up this year that their goal, they wanted to get on the biggest pike of their life. You know what I mean? That was, and they knew that coming up to Alaska is a good chance that they'll get on it. And when we did, you know what I mean? We get them on their 43-inch northern pike, you know what I mean? That came up out of the water pretty much right at the raft, you know what I mean? Opens its big mouth up like a freaking gator it is, you know what I mean? And, looks right at you like it's going to freaking come in and bite, you know what I mean? It's just, it's awesome. You know what I mean? And the clients are, you know, trembling as they're bringing this pike in, you know what I mean? Because they're bringing in a monster, you know what I mean? That they just had to fight, for last 15 minutes, you know what I mean? To even not get broke off. And yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, it's just, you know, getting paid to be in the backcountry, man. I mean,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that to me
absolutely.
is, awesome. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not just a, money piece, but it's nice to be able to obviously, make a living in by out in the backcountry, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean it's all the above for sure, man. The
For
connections
sure.
with good folks. There's nothing better than sharing things you're passionate about with people. I like to teach people new things, and yeah, I mean getting paid to go fishing, right? So that's pretty awesome, man. What kind of trips do you guys offer, and will you be offering like this upcoming season?
So we do offer, we got float trips. We can do fly-in trips. Hike into places. It just depends on the basically, after my trips are all what we call custom tailored trips. So I talk with the clients, and usually via a phone call after, probably I either get an email or I get something that they're interested in a trip, and then I'll get a hold of them and talk to them because I got to find out everything, what their goal is, what they want to go for, expectation, limitations, you know what I mean? Like anything medical and whatnot, so that I can make sure we can do, offer up the best trip we can safely. Because I've got to realize, this isn't, I'm not doing cookie cutter trips. You know what I mean? I'm not running a section of water that I run the day before and the day before that and the day before that. You know what I mean? We may go into areas, hell, we might go to areas I've never been to. It's going to be dependent on what we're trying to do. You know what I mean? What kind of trip we're trying to offer up. And I wanted to make sure that that was what our business model was going to be around. I did not want to be a cookie cutter deal. You know what I mean? You can't pull up on my website and say, you know what I mean? Like, hey, it's, the Chena River, you know what I
Yep.
mean? Grayling fishing, you know what I mean? And these guys, will run a section of water day in and day out, you know what I mean? Where they'll be
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, when I'm down the raft, they'll be like, hey, in about 200 yards off to the left, there will be this great pool, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing it. I'm running sections of water, once a season, maybe, you know what I mean? Or maybe twice, you know what I mean? And then we're going to different places. Because I want to offer up a more real experience. You know what I mean? Like I've got to read the water and determine where I think the fish are going to be at, you know what I mean? And then get, talk with the clients and stuff like that on it, not something that I, have run and got all figured out, you know what I mean? So to me, it's still like real backcountry, experience, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I
Yeah,
guess
I'd say if I could explain it better, you know what I mean? But
well,
and
what
then
I'm
to offer
hearing
up now, yeah.
I'm hearing, man, is that you offer up tailored, like, well, I mean, your name says it, right? Expeditions, but you're offering up personalized adventures. And to do that, you're taking it's, I mean, it's a little bit of a risk as a guide, right? To run different water all the time. one of the things that they tell you in guide school is get to know your water. And I think it's really awesome that you're willing to go out there and kind of put it on the line. But what you're getting in return as a client isn't, like you said, it's not your normal guided fishing trip. You are getting, and I haven't gone with you, but this is what I'm taking away from is you're going to get a client. If I come book with you, I'm going to go on a real Alaska backcountry adventure expedition. It's going to be more what people think of when they go to Alaska. And I will tell you, and this is nothing against the outfit that I went with for grayling, but it was the same guided trip that I guide here in Idaho or that I would go on here in Idaho, right? It's a kid that's run that section of river a bunch, and he did a really good job. It was exactly what you would expect from a guided fly fishing trip. So I think it's really cool, and that's probably what is going to set you apart really fast is that you're not doing that. You are doing Alaska. And if I'm coming to Alaska for a fishing trip, that's what I want. I want Alaska.
Yeah, man. And that's like what we're trying to do is be the, I mean, there's, plenty of guides up here, you know what I mean, that people can go do, like if the standard guided, fishing trip. And there's, like I said, there's nothing wrong with that, nothing against that. We're just trying to be a little bit different. Like I said, more of the adventure, the expedition. You know what I mean? That's
Yep.
why one of our big pieces is multi-day trips. Now, don't get me wrong. I offer up half-day trips and full-day trips. You know what I mean? Because there's people that do that. You know what I mean? But then we're still doing it. Not cookie cutter. Picking different sections of water, different rivers, depending on the species we're going for, different areas, different lakes. And doing it that way still, you know what I mean? But our bread and butter is to do these multi-day trips where you're on an expedition is ultimately what it is. And this year, or up and coming year, I should say, I guess more like next year in 2026 for the summer season, we are now going to have I added to my fleet of not just running rafts is a couple 22-foot all welds, one with a 150 horse Honda Jet, and the other one has a 90 horse prop Honda. And that's for running in areas like Minto and that we go up to for some of the pike. Basically, it's you can't run a jet up in some of these areas because it'll suck up all that aquatic vegetation into the jet there, and then you just can't. I mean, if you know anything about jets, it's no bueno on the jet. You know what I mean, for that kind of water. So it's best to run a prop. So that's why we have the two different types here for depending on what we're going to run. But that's going to open up some areas that we'll be able to run in and either work out of the boat or run into areas and then launch our rafts and then raft out. You know what I mean? Just kind of depends. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, I love it, man.
but more tools for us to offer up in our trips. So
I don't know a lot about Alaska outfitted fishing, but I have a really good feeling there's not anybody out there or a lot of outfitters that are going to touch the unique stuff that you're doing, man. And I'm really excited to watch you grow. And I really, like we kind of talked about pre-recording, I hope I can come up and maybe even help you out, be a part of it. As you know, I've said this a million times, you're living in my dream state, man. I love Idaho a lot. It's hard to think of anything better than Idaho. But unfortunately, I went to Alaska a couple times, and yeah, Alaska just grabs you and it doesn't let go. So someday I'll accomplish that goal. Maybe, who knows when, but that's to be determined. But I think what you're doing is really exciting, really unique. And I just have zero doubts in my mind that you're going to just absolutely blow up, succeed, and continue to be trying to figure out how to expand your capacity because people are going to be wanting to go fishing with you. That being said, if somebody does want to go fish with you, what's the best way for them to contact you?
probably the best way is just to visit our site. And it's, www.aklarge.com. So we're Alaska Lakes and Rivers Guided Expeditions, and the acronym AK Large. So it's we own that domain, so it's awesome that we'll be able to have I wanted to have a simple website, you know what I mean, address, somebody can remember, or just briefly hear and go, oh, AK Large, that's easy, you know what I mean. Someday, hopefully, and maybe I'll invest into this, which I've been talking to people about doing. It takes money, man, you know what I
Yes, it
mean,
does.
to start a business, you know what I mean? And especially when we're talking about, like an outfitter, like we are, it's, you can start to put a lot of money put into it, you know what I mean? So we
Hmm.
got to take everything in stride as we can. But at some point, I would probably like to invest into one of these companies, and I've been talking to an individual about it. It would be where they work on our website and they also work to get that. So like when you go into Google and you search
Yep.
uh like whatever you're going for, like say you want to search for, outfitter in Alaska, you know what I mean, that will pop up quick,
Right.
you know what I mean, or be in that first bit to pop up. I'm not a computer guy or tech guy at all. So it's I don't understand it 100%. I'd have to have somebody do it for me. Like my website right now is I got a buddy who helps me with it because he knows enough about computers and he can, get this old knuckle dragger here to get some stuff on it. That's why if you get on our website, don't I'm sorry, it's not impressive. You know what I mean? As far as,
Yeah.
websites to go, we're going to get better at it. And we got to get some more content added on there. But yes, if somebody want to reach out to us, you go to that www.aklarge.com. It's got my contact info. You can either call us, text, or then there's the email link in there. There's actually there's I can't remember what you call it, but there's a little link in there where you can send us basically an email to reach out to us, and we'll
Yep.
start the conversation.
Awesome, man. Well, yeah, Jesse, Alaska Lakes and Rivers Guided Expeditions, based out of Fairbanks, Alaska. Folks, if you're looking to pull the trigger to go on a fishing trip in Alaska, don't go on the normal fishing trip. I would highly recommend going on a awesome backcountry adventure with Jesse. I know that at some point I am definitely going to come up and go on a backcountry adventure with Jesse. We'll figure out how that's going to work, but I'm sold.
Well,
I
we're going
think
to get you up here so we can put you to work
I
too.
love it, man. So yeah, guys and gals listening, go ahead, visit. I'm looking at his website right now. It's AKLARGE. And it is a very easy to navigate website. He's underselling it, even with his self-admitted outdated gallery of images. It's enough. I know when I looked at it to get excited. So get on there. You can go to booking requests, send him his your contact info, get in touch, plan your trip because I don't think you guys will regret it. Also supporting another veteran-owned business, which is what we're all about. Jesse, thank you so much for your time, man. I think I'm inspired. So I really hope that listeners out there that are thinking about getting into the a guiding industry of any kind, that they're inspired to just jump in and do it, because sometimes that's what you got to do. So thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Yep.
But if you guys jump into it, go to Sweetwater.
Yeah, and last plug for Sweetwater. Like I said, this will be back to back with the episode with Corey, which that's actually our second Sweetwater. If you go back to one of my first handful of episodes, you'll find the episode that we recorded live in the school with my fellow students. So give these shows a listen, like, subscribe, all those things, comment, review. Help me. I don't make any money doing this. I pay to be a podcaster. So if you guys can help share the word about the podcast, it helps. And until next time, go out there and chase your dreams in the outdoors, man. That's why we're pursuing freedom in the outdoors podcast. So we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks again. And if this resonates with you, I want to welcome you to the tribe and encourage you to share this podcast with your friends. Hit subscribe and follow us on Instagram at Pursuing Freedom Outdoors. And if you or someone you know has a great story about life or the wilderness, I want to share it. You can shoot me a message on Instagram or email me with all inquiries and questions at thomas@pursuingfreedomoutdoors.com. That's Thomas, THOMAS, at pursuingfreedomoutdoors.com. Until next time, get out there, get after it, and pursue freedom in the outdoors. Before we get started, I want to thank our first partner, Response Ready Medical. Response Ready Medical, bringing our customers the best quality training and equipment for the worst case scenario. Response Ready Medical's vision is to be the leading provider of emergency preparedness solutions across the United States, empowering communities, organizations, and individuals to respond confidently and preserve life during critical moments. Offering same-day certification, all Response Ready medical classes are instructed by nationally registered and state-licensed firefighter, paramedics, law enforcement officers, and hospital staff. Classes currently being offered by Response Ready Medical include CPR and AED, CPR, AED, and first aid, emergency trauma care, child and babysitting safety, CABS, backcountry medicine, and wilderness first aid. Your premium partner in emergency preparedness, Response Ready Medical.